My name is Rebecca Smith, and this is my lesson plan assignment for Advanced Teaching and Assessment. This lesson plan was designed for a 10th grade English class that focuses on British literature, and I will be walking you through the first 3 sections today. The standard that I've chosen for this lesson is Reading Informational Text 9 through 10.6, and it says to determine an author's point of view or purpose in a text and analyze how an author uses rhetoric to advance that point of view or purpose. The objective that I've written for this lesson, it says the student will be able to identify and provide commentary on artistic proofs used in Queen Elizabeth's speech to the troops at Tilbury. I wrote this objective to really focus on the rhetoric part of the standard that they will be mastering by the end of their 10th grade year. And artistic proofs are just one of the main foundations to understanding rhetoric. As is explained here, it says that I've chosen this objective because artistic proofs, which is just another way for saying logos, pathos, and ethos appeals, are one of the first 5 canons of rhetoric. So again, rhetoric has 5 canons, and artistic proofs are one of those 5 canons. So for a student to be able to understand what rhetoric is, they need a foundation. They need to understand what artistic proofs are. By attaining this goal, they will be able to identify examples of rhetoric. So the fact that they can identify rhetoric will allow me to know that they understand what artistic proofs are. And they will also be showing me that they understand by providing commentary on it. So commentary is the criterion I will use because it allows me to see that my students are connecting with the text. They're not just guessing. For those connections to be made, it allows me to see that the students can fully grasp what artistic proofs are. Again, understanding artistic proofs will give the students the foundation they will need to understand rhetoric, and students need to understand artistic appeals before they can understand writer's purpose. So in obtaining these goals, they will be working to master the standard that I've chosen. The instruction will begin with whole group discussion, and I will model identifying artistic appeals for the first 5 lines of the speech. Then my students will work with their neighbor to work on the next 5 lines of the speech. And after my students work in pairs, we will discuss our findings as a class. I will then ask my students to work individually on the last 5 lines of the speech so I can assess their understanding of the lesson. So the reason that I've chosen this procedure for grouping is because I really want my students to feel confident in their understanding of artistic proofs. Artistic proofs are something that I've noticed that sometimes students are a little insecure with at first. And so I really want them to feel confident and that they are, and I want them to feel guided in their learning. So I want my entire class to be grouped together so I can model the behavior that I want them to learn. And so, everybody as a group can be, seeing me think aloud. And so the think alouds will be used for them to have that guidance in their own thinking. And so it's very important to me that the whole group gets to experience that together. Then my students will work in pairs. And I've chosen pairs rather than large groups because I believe pairs for this lesson will achieve a few different things. First of all, I want my students to really be thinking. This is an activity, or this is a lesson that is a strong thinking lesson, and so I want my students to be working together because I don't want them to be waiting on somebody else in the group. If it's a big group, I don't want them to be waiting on somebody else, or I don't want them to be distracted by a large group. I really want them focused on the text, and so I believe that working in pairs will they will maintain focus, they will be thinking more, they'll also feel more responsibility to contribute and collaborate. So it will achieve a lot of different things, but again, it's still guided practice. After pairing up, I want the class to discuss their findings as a whole. I feel that sharing findings in the whole class provides a sense of community, and it offers an opportunity for, peer feedback, and that also, again, contributes to student confidence. It's so important to me that I can create a community, a sense of community in my classroom. I often use the term coffee shop style discussion, or, let's think of this as a big book club. I want those walls to be taken down so my students can just feel the freedom to learn. And, when my students are collaborating together, that community is felt. The other thing too is that students learn so much from each other. So it's really important to me that after they've worked in pairs, that they, share those findings with everybody, because they're learning so much from each other. And then the neat thing is when they, compliment each other and they say, oh, that was really, insightful. I've never thought of that, or I didn't think of that, way to go. And so it's really neat, because then students feel confident to work independently. And, the final grouping that I have is that students will work independently so I can assess their understanding of the material. I've chosen several instructional strategies for this lesson. The teaching methods that I've chosen are front-loading, pre-reading, pre-teaching, contexting, modeling, thinking aloud, pair and class discussions, providing recognition and feedback, and homework practice. So in the beginning of the lesson, I will use front-loading to build my students' anticipation for the lesson. Then I will use contexting to provide the historical background needed to understand the speech. I will then use modeling and thinking aloud strategies to demonstrate identifying the artistic proofs and providing connections and commentary with them. I will then use pair and class discussions to promote collaboration in my classroom, and then I will provide recognition and feedback to my students to give them guidance before practicing independently. The reason that I've chosen these methods, the first methods that I've chosen, front-loading, pre-reading, and contexting, I've chosen because I really want my students to feel prepared for this lesson. This is an Elizabethan piece, and so sometimes students feel a little insecure when they've been given something that old. I want them to be excited about it, but I also want them to feel confident that they can tackle that material. So it's really important that I do my job of pre-teaching vocabulary words, giving them historical context so they can understand what is even going on in the first place. And it's also really important that I pre-teach the artistic proofs so that they do know what they are and how they can identify them. Then I've chosen the modeling and thinking aloud method because it's just, in my opinion, it's the best way to demonstrate how to obtain, or to my students, how they can obtain those skills that I'm wanting them to learn. By thinking aloud, my students can observe how I'm connecting to the material, and it gives them guidance for how to think and how to make those connections. And then again, discussion will promote collaboration and community amongst my classroom, and my students will be learning from each other, and they will be, building each other up, and that's so important to me. And again, feedback and recognition will guide my students in their learning. It's so important to me that I let my students know, hey, maybe independently, maybe you need to work on this, or it's so important to me that I am giving them feedback and that they know they're learning it, that they're not that they're not learning it the wrong way, or, that they're not confused. So it's so important that I give them recognition so they can feel confident that they're working the way that I want them to work when they're working independently. And I've chosen homework practice as a opportunity for my students to show me what they've learned. And that way I can evaluate their understanding of the material. So those are the instructional strategies, and that concludes the first 3 sections of my lesson plan for the standard that I've chosen. Thank you.